Welcome to Fundraising Leaders with Drew, where we embark on a journey to discover the heart and soul of nonprofit fundraising and decode the strategies that lead to fundraising success. I'm your host, Drew Clancy, and I am grateful to be joined today by Mike Glauser. Mike is a successful entrepreneur who's been the founder or co-founder of several successful companies and now serves as the executive director of the Center for Entrepreneurship in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. Mike is an innovative fundraiser and also the author of 4 books, including most recently, One People, One Planet, 6 Universal Truths for Being Happy Together. Let's jump right in with Mike.
Thanks for having me, Drew. I'm looking forward to chatting with you today.
Terrific. Well, we are going to talk about 3 different times in your life or your professional life when you've been involved in fundraising. But why don't we just kick off with perhaps a few highlights from your career and a couple of things you've done.
Great. So I wasn't real smart in my early days. I went straight through school, did a bachelor's, master's, and PhD, and started teaching at the University of North Carolina. I was 27 years old, and I was teaching MBA classes to executives. And I quickly realized that if I ever wanted to be a thought leader in the field, I needed to leave the safe harbor of academics and go start some businesses. So I stayed 4 years and had a great experience, and then went out into the world to start some companies. And my wife's degree is in health and nutrition and fitness. We wanted to do something together. So we started a company where we sold frozen dessert products that had low fat, no calories. They were mostly yogurt products. And we needed to build some retail stores as channels of distribution. And I needed money to do that. And I didn't have much money at the time. And I had some investors that were really interested in the concept. They believed in the concept and they believed in me, but they wanted 50 to 60% of the business because we had no revenue.
Sure.
And I wasn't willing to give away that much money, and I wanted to maintain ownership. And they kind of chuckled. But we came up with this really innovative scheme. We created a separate company, which was a leasing company that leased money to people in the food industry. And I had a small interest in that company. And the leasing company then funded our first 10 retail stores with about $2 million. And I kept 100% of the ownership. And the agreement was that they would get 7% on their money every year over a period of time. It was amortized over a 10-year period. Or they would get 30% of the revenue from each retail unit that they funded. And so we were able to quickly, within a few years, build 10 to 12 retail locations. They were all profitable. And now that we were doing millions of dollars in sales, they wanted to convert the equipment leases to ownership. But instead of getting 50%, we agreed on 20%. So it eliminated all of my debt, 100% of my debt, and I gave up 20% of the company rather than 50 to 60% of the company. And then later we had a really nice exit. We sold to a publicly traded company and everyone was thrilled. So that was kind of a creative way to fund a very capital intensive restaurant business while maintaining most of the ownership. And in the end, always having a controlling interest in the company. So that was my first experience with fundraising.
Wow. Love that. Talk a little bit about your second. This was more in the civic realm, correct?
Yeah, we wanted to build a city park on a hill in Salt Lake City called Ensign Peak, the 66 acres. And it was owned privately, but it had some real historical significance for the valley. It was where Brigham Young and the pioneers came into the valley and hiked up on this peak and then sat up there and laid out the future city. And it's really kind of a fun, nice location north of the city. And so we were able to acquire that piece of property by trading some city land for that private piece of ground. And then I was asked to raise $1 million for that project, that nonprofit city project. And my first attempt was to get a bunch of the wealthy people in the valley together at a really nice, fine, high-end restaurant and tell them all about the project and beg for money. And they all said, "This is a great project." And they got them left, and no one gave me anything at all. And I
Strike
thought, okay,
one.
I got to use a different strategy. So what I did is I asked these same high-end investors to meet me at 6 a.m. at the base of this peak. And we climbed up this peak together. It was almost a mile to the top. And I told the story and the history of that peak and the role it played in the development of Salt Lake City, and how if we didn't preserve it and do something, it's soon going to be full of houses. And after that, they all gave us money. We had 850,000, and we had to decide whether to start the contractors. And we said, "Go ahead and start them." And I went to the last investor at night, and I just said, "We need $150,000 from you, Mike." And he said, "Okay." And so we got the $1 million. And so my motto ever since then has been see it, feel it, and then do it. You
Ah,
can't just ask for money if they have to have had an experience with the event, the cause that you're working on. And so when they climbed up that peak and sat up there in the morning as the sun was coming up, and they heard the story of the significance of the peak in their city where they have corporate headquarters, then it worked. So see it, feel it, and then do it. And I've used that strategy to raise funds ever since that second experience.
wow. I love that. That is so great. So great. Um, Tell us a little bit about serving as the executive director there for the Center of Entrepreneurship. Um, I'm sure you're raising money for scholarships and different programs there at the center. Kind of walk us through, Mike, how you approach that from a fundraising perspective.
Yes, so we are the Center for Entrepreneurship in the John M. Huntsman School of Business. I came here in 2011 on about a 5-year agreement with the dean, and I'm still here 13 years later. And it's been a phenomenal experience. The Huntsman School of Business is a very unique place with a wonderful culture. It's one of the academic institutions I've been involved with that has a phenomenal supportive culture. We do research and we write books and publish articles, but our number one priority is student success. And if we're not good in the classroom, if we're not responsive to students, there's no role for us in the Huntsman School of Business.
Sure.
So we've created a whole series of courses and co-curricular, non-curricular programs to teach students the skills of entrepreneurship. We believe entrepreneurship is just creating value for some group of people in the world. It's innovation, it's creative problem solving, and it's value creation. And so they can use these skills in any kind of organization, whether it's for profit or nonprofit or a startup or an established corporation or a church or a government or a charity. And so we've been raising money for these students and for our programs the entire 13 years that I've been there. And I've pretty much followed the same program of see it, feel it, do it. I started building a board of people that were not closely affiliated with the Huntsman School. They were friends of mine, but maybe they had interest in other projects and they weren't graduates of Utah State. It just didn't work all that well. And so I started filling the board up with 30 members that really had a love of Utah State, that either been there or their parents had gone there or their children were there. And they loved entrepreneurship. And they especially loved our International Poverty Alleviation Program.
Oh,
And so the same program, I take them out into the world. We've been recently to the Dominican Republic and we've been to Mexico. And I have them actually work with our students that we give scholarships to. And they work with these students as they teach families that live in poverty how to start small micro enterprises and double their household income.
wow.
And so We have 100 students out in the world. We select them from a wide pool of majors. They're not just business students. They're from every major. They're engineers, they're graphic designers, they're nurses, they're music majors, education majors. And for one full semester, we teach them the skills of entrepreneurship and consulting and microfinance. And then they go live for one full semester. We're in 7 countries around the world. They actually live with the people in poverty, and they teach classes about half the time, and then they mentor the families half the time. So we've worked with probably 20,000 families, and as I mentioned, their goal is to double their household income. So if they're making $200 a month, we want them to go to $400 or $500 a month, and we've had pretty good success doing that. But we wanted this opportunity to be for all students, regardless of their family's financial background. So it costs about $3,500 to send a student out into the world for a semester. And I like to give them a scholarship that pays $2,000 of those dollars. So it's about 60%. And so they only need about $500 a month to live in a foreign country for 3 months. So it's an unbelievable opportunity for them. And so I'm spending most of my time raising money right now for those scholarships so 100 students can go out every year into the world and have an amazing experience that changes their lives and changes the lives of the people they teach. And they come back and get great jobs because they're in big demand for what they have just done in the world. So it's
I love
awesome.
it. Yeah. Oh, awesome indeed. Tell us a little bit about how do you go about raising that money? What strategies do you use? How do you think about it? Any innovative approaches?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we do board trips and potential donor trips where we go, and they're not, tourism. They're not sightseeing. We live right close to the students, and we go out every day and we work with their clients. We go into their cinder block
Wow.
homes and their houses with dirt floors and tin roofs, and we teach. And then we have at the end of the week a business plan competition where these board members and guests, donors will give money to these entrepreneurs to help them, take their business to the next level. But if they see it, when I come back from these trips, almost everyone that goes makes a nice donation. They'll fund a whole city for a year or for 5 years and make donations to the scholarship fund. We're trying something different this year. We were actually staging a cross-country bike ride from the West Coast, the Pacific Ocean in Oregon, to the East Coast in Virginia. And it's a 4,000-mile bike trip. And some of us faculty, staff, and students are riding our bicycles across the country, and we're asking our existing donors plus additional donors to donate so much per mile. So if they donate a penny per mile, it's only $40. If they donate $1 per mile, it's more than that. It's $4,000. It pays for 2 scholarships. And what we're doing is we're looking for corporations that we're compatible with that want to make a $100,000 donation to be a sponsor. So these would be companies that provide food products that we'll be eating across the country, or they're companies that make small business loans. And then we're asking our board members to, do about, some of them do $10 per mile. That's $40,000. And so we think during this 6-week adventure, we have a beautiful website we're just releasing next week, and they pledge per mile, and they get to see us moving across the country. We're taking a video crew with us, and we're posting each day how much money we raised. But we're hopeful to raise $1 million by the end of the summer, and that would pay for, 500 students to go out in the world on this seed experience that is so impactful in their lives. So kind of a broader way, we want to raise more funds for smaller amounts for more people to really gain publicity for the program. So that's kind of our scheme this year.
Wow. I talk about innovative. Very cool. And we will post the website here on the podcast. So our listeners who would like to support you, obviously give them an opportunity to do that. So I love that story.
Yeah, we have a kind of a philosophy in our center that everything we do really, really well, the highest level of excellence. We don't do things that are cheap and quick and ragged. We want people, if they're going to support us, they need to know that we strive towards excellence in everything we do. And so we've hired some designers, some really professional designers. We're building a beautiful brand. It's called Pedaling to End Poverty. It'll be peddlingtoendpoverty.org. And so we have a color palette and a whole brand and a slogan, which is "We empower the world's entrepreneurs." And we have videos of what we're doing and why, and videos of some of the students and the people that we've taught. And then we will have two vans follow us. One will be doing social media and one will be doing videography. And so we'll be posting regularly on the website. People will get to see the whole journey across America and hopefully feel like this is worthy of anywhere from a small to a large donation. It's an approach rather than going to just the wealthy. We want more people to hear about it, learn about it, and jump in with smaller donations all the way up to larger donations. So that's the strategy.
I love that strategy. Thanks so much for sharing that. So looking back at your career, looking at very different projects from the for-profit sector to more the civic, your city, to now in academia, and seeing different fundraising approaches, what do you think are the key skills to be successful at fundraising?
There's one main skill, and it applies to every kind of organization, business, for-profit, nonprofit. It's relationship building. So you have to be willing to meet people. You have to like people. You have to go to lots of lunches. You have to be a good communicator. And, we have many, many generous donors in the world. Entrepreneurs that have succeeded and harvested are some of the most generous donors, but they all have their own interests. So you have to get to know them well. And I take a real non-pressure approach. I say, hey, I don't want to do anything that isn't a good match for you. Let me tell you what we're doing. And if anything makes sense and you can get excited about it, great. If not, nothing personal, no hard feelings. I want to be friends. And then I explain what I'm doing as we build this relationship through a number of contacts. They explain to me what they're passionate about. And if it's a fit, great. And if it's not, I refer them to somebody else. So building relationships, finding out what their hot buttons are, what they're passionate about, being a great communicator. And then, as I said, see it, feel it, do it. You have to take them out and have them experience what you're trying to do. So if you're raising money for a hospital, they better go and, tour that area and see the needs and maybe meet some of the potential patients or some patients that have been helped by that hospital chain. Whatever it is you're doing, they have to see it and feel it, and then they're more likely to do it. And so my strategy is pretty simple. Build relationships, be a great communicator, don't beg or push, try to create matches, and in the end, develop great friendships, whether they donate or don't donate. But they've got to really have an emotional experience with the project, and they're far more likely then to make some contributions.
Hear, 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 hear. So well said. Mike, I think it's interesting to get your perspective, again, having been a successful entrepreneur, raising money in more obviously of the for-profit world, and then actually starting in academia, going into the for-profit sector, now back in the nonprofit sector at a university. How do you see? How was that transition for you? Sort of going into business, starting a business, and then exiting the business, coming back into academia. Tell us a little bit about that. Do you see that is again, it's relationship based, so that's probably something consistent. But what about the challenges and opportunities specifically within academia?
Well, I kind of view all organizations the same, whether they're for-profit, nonprofit, an academic institution. We're building organizations. The only difference between a for-profit and nonprofit, I say, is a a tax code with the federal government. And they still all need strategy. They need team building. They need fundraising. They need marketing. They need public relations. And so whether I'm building the center of entrepreneurship or building a for-profit business or a nonprofit, I follow the exact same practices of entrepreneurial leadership. And so I don't see a lot of difference. I think when nonprofit, when I started my career, there was a huge gap between for-profit and nonprofits. The for-profits were perceived to be led by greedy individuals that wanted to make money. The nonprofits were perceived to be led by people with big hearts but didn't know anything about business or leadership. And that's completely changed over the last few decades, that we have many great entrepreneurial leaders building nonprofits and schools and churches and governments and academic institutions. And we're all using entrepreneurial leadership skills. We find a strong purpose. We create a vision. We build teams. We build a brand. We learn how to market, do public relations. We learn how to raise money. We learn how to fund our growth and how to scale. And so building the Center for Entrepreneurship for me was no different than building my for-profit enterprise. And I think the reason we've been so successful, we've significantly increased the number of students in our program. And we find that most academics, they don't have a background in business and leadership, so they don't market very well. We're really good at marketing our programs across the campus and across the state of Utah. So that's kind of my approach to building organizations within academics.
I love it. Love it, love it, love it. You have recently written a new book. I would tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about the book itself and the process of writing it.
Yeah, so we've noticed in the last few years, even before COVID, a huge increase in anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide, and suicide in every single demographic, every age group. It's worse, however, in the younger groups, high school and college, which is our, constituency. And so I started really seriously wondering, I don't know if you've seen the statistics, but 22% of Americans 18 and over last year had a diagnosable emotional or mental illness. That's 1 in 5. And at the college level, 18 to 25-year-olds, it was 33%. High school students, 42% in the last CDC survey said they feel persistently hopeless, and 22% have considered suicide. So we have an epidemic, an emotional epidemic in this country. And when I started noticing the research, there's a strong link between happiness and emotional well-being and success in starting and building businesses and in one's career. So as a Center for Entrepreneurship, we wanted to work on the whole individual. How do we help people have greater peace of mind, stronger emotional well-being, and just greater joy and happiness in life? And so we did about 3 years of research and found some really powerful principles that have been vetted by modern day research in the field of psychology, mostly positive psychology. And so we wrote a book. It's called One People, One Planet, 6 Universal Truths for Being Happy Together. And then we created a college course that we're teaching now. And we have hundreds of students taking that course. And we're trying to give them some tools to improve their happiness and emotional health, which has a huge impact on their career success, right out of college and throughout their lives. So in the class, they learn the principles, and then they actually practice them during the semester and gain a conviction that my life's better when I do these things than when I don't do these things. So that's kind of a real brief summary of the latest project coming out of our center.
Wow, super powerful. We will be sure to include a link to be able to purchase the book. I write a business blog actually every day as well, and I write about books, and I very much look forward to reading it. Mike, so great to get to spend a little bit of time with you. Thanks for all your good work, and thanks for sharing some of your successful and innovative strategies for fundraising success.
Well, thanks for having me, Drew, and good luck with your business and your podcast. And hopefully we can chat again sometime.
I look forward to it. Thanks, Mike.